Well, it says we're live.
I guess we're live. You better do your little spiel there.
Yeah. So, good evening, everybody. I'm Dustin Coiner from TrackDaz here in Southern California, and I'm on again for our Ask a Superbike Genius segment with the Superbike Genius himself, Richard Stanboli, the team boss guy, electronic genius extraordinaire guy from the FreshNLean Attack Performance Yamaha racing team.
That sounds just about right. You said that correct.
I feel sorry for Greg White having to say that name every time he announces you guys.
Yeah, well, I did a little interview with Hannah Lopa, and I told her it's got to be the fresh. I screwed it up too during the interview, so I stopped halfway through. I said, "Well, I think I forgot a few words."
Yeah, that's a mouthful, man. But it's the nature of the business, right? Yep. So you guys just did a test out in Texas, the land of the barbecue, right?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Yeah, there's barbecue there, and then there's people living under bridges in Austin. Austin, the San Francisco of Texas.
That's pretty accurate, actually.
It's amazing how crappy downtown could be. Just let them have a run at it.
Oh man, that's
Oakland.
Hilarious. You know, one of the biggest comments I got from people are like, why making it such a big deal about a test at a racetrack that you guys aren't going to race on?
Yeah, is that a question?
Yeah.
Because that is a really good racetrack to try certain things like we tested. And if you want me to go over all the stuff we tested, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah, so that track layout is pretty strange. You have a lot of first and second gear corners, and then you have a 6-gear straightaway, which is pretty long. It's close to Road America speed. Road America, I think going to turn 5, you might get a little more speed because you're not coming off a first gear corner. You're going through there like a 3rd gear corner, I do believe, and then you accelerate all the way down into turn 5. It's downhill too, so you get a little more speed to Road America. But this is one of the tracks where we could really test. One of the things we tested was some new brakes. New brake rotors are braking. Braking is so kind to supply us with these rotors, and they've been working really well for us. I mean, the riders had 0 complaints about brakes. And then we had put these to the side. Then we had a new caliper that we tested too from Brembo, and these are called the Evo 3s. They're like an anti-drag caliper, and if you see right here, they have a little piston. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It moves up and down. So that allows the brake pads to float a little more, but without giving up the feel. And we had 0 complaints from riders. And the wheels did spin a little freer when they came in. Like most race calipers, the pads are really attracted to the rotor. So once they cool down, you get a little bit of drag on them. But when they're on the racetrack, they really spun nicely, which should equate into some mile per hour. And then we tested our new carbon in bodywork, which worked out really well. A little bit better aero than the stuff we used last year, and a little more stable at speed. So we're pretty happy with that. The fitment was really nice. And what else we test? We had some new warmers. Here, I'll show you. So this year we're using the Capit. Yeah, it's like show and tell here. This year we have these new Capit warmers, and these warmers are really cool because they have a wire on the inside right here, like a heating element, and they wrap around the rim. They actually heat your rim. So not only do they heat your tire, but they heat your rim, so it keeps the air in the tire more stable. And then we had some covers on them and all kinds of things. And then we had this controller box, which runs the warmers. And I'm pretty sure I think Lee or somebody had XM radio going on these things, playing country music or something.
I was going to ask if they come with Tetris.
Yeah. I don't know, Italian country music maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Who knows? And then, I mean, we put Jake to work because he tested a lot of stuff, and Josh tested my patience mostly, but I had fun.
I mean, that's like an average Tuesday for that guy, right?
Yeah. How much can you put up with Josh?
I mean, he's all right. He just, he's Josh.
Yeah. So we tested a new linkage, which you probably say, what does that do? Well, adds grip, makes you go faster.
Okay.
And various pull rods that go with the linkage. And did I show you this, the new Olin shock we got too? So it's pretty lightweight. I'm not going to make any comments about the size of the shaft or anything. There's clickers on here and a suspension potentiometer.
Nice.
So yeah, and then there's another type of caplet warmer we tried too, and man, these warmers, they really get the tire up to temp fast and holds it really consistent. So I think there'll be a bit of an advantage for the start of the race, especially when you go out the grid, you know, and you allow your tires to cool off when everyone's sitting there. It's like, why do you warm your tires for an hour when you get to sit on the grid? So these things, they supply some covers and things like that will help keep the temp up for the start of the race. So I think that'll be a pretty good advantage for us for the start of the race. And yeah, so we went through a lot of parts and a lot of testing on Jake's side, and Josh, we're just working on making him more and more comfortable on the bike. You know, we struggled a bit with his rear feel of the rear wheel. I think at the very, very end of the second day, we're able to get it. You know, we had some issues the first day with the weather, you know, and then the next day it was kind of raining the first session. And so we didn't get as much time on track as we would have liked. So we had to really push through a bunch of things with Jake to get as much testing as we could done.
Well, I mean, looking at the test, I mean, you know, let's just talk about the test. You know, I mean, I watched kind of the live feed both on the Moto America timing as well as the Speed Hive.
Yep.
So, you know, on Moto America live timing, you could see every lap. So I made sure to be a complete nerd and watch every lap of Superbike just to see. And what was interesting, it looked like every session Jake would go right out, bang out like some stupid fast lap, and then come in. And then, you know, the guys, the other riders would eventually, some of them would end up catching him and passing his time. And then he would go out and go straight to the top again. And, you know, it's the end of the first day, he had the fastest lap until like the 4 minutes to go, but he was sitting in the pits.
Yeah, that's because like I said, we're changing things. You know, we're changing calipers, we're changing master cylinders, we're changing, you know, linkages, we're changing shocks, we were testing a new engine braking strategy as well. So there was a lot of stuff to go through it within the amount of sessions we had, especially when the track was fogged in or wet or whatever the case might have been. It was pretty windy too, so the track was kind of inconsistent. You know, the guys didn't know if they could get blown around down the straightaway or if they could get pushed wide in a corner. So I think our guys were riding fairly conservative. And then we stayed on race tires the whole time. So I'm not sure what the other teams did, but I did see some fast one lappers, which leads me to believe that there wasn't another lap left in that tire. So I'm not too worried about the fast one lappers. I like to see a string. And if they do a string of fast ones, then you got something to worry about. But I did not see any string. If you go back through all the timing sheets, there wasn't really a string. I think Baz did a number of 10s in a row. He did do a run of 10s, but I didn't see a run of 9s. You know, and he popped out an 8, a pretty fast 8, and then Jake did a high 8. And so I think the speeds were relatively close amongst, you know, us and the Ducati. Of course, he's learning the bike, and Jake's had a year on the bike, but Baz is no dummy. You know, he rode a Yamaha last year, and he rode a Kawasaki before that, and you know, I think he rode for Honda. He rode a MotoGP bike. I mean, that dude's been around the bike guy. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure he rode a few bicycles and a tricycle too. You know, so I think he's ridden just about everything fast. So it'll be a definitely interesting, challenging season for us. So it'll keep us honest for sure, and I'm hoping we can keep them honest.
Going back to the Jake thing, I mean, we've talked about it a lot in the preseason tests that you've had at Buttonwillow, and you know, Jake's made a huge improvement. And I mean, is it the Canadian mafia that you got on that side of the garage making a big difference, or?
Well, I mean, John is half American because he's an American citizen and a Canadian citizen, so he's got dual citizenship. So he doesn't throw out the A's too much, you know.
No,
but that dude's been around the block too, right? I mean, he's worked with some of the best riders in the world, in World Superbike and some MotoGP, and he was a racer himself and a good racer too. a fast one, and he understands the dynamics of the bike. He understands the rider mentality. He understands all that stuff. So I think it's definitely a step up from last year, where the situation last year was a little bit different. The crew chief, the way Yamaha had it, they had technical people, and they had a crew chief that was basically making sure the notes were right and the wheels were all bolted on right, and the crew was doing the right job. So our team is structured a little different. The crew chief needs to be the technician. It's a smaller team scenario, right? So the crew chief needs to be able to understand the motorcycle, the dynamics, the rider, all that stuff. Be a rider coach, be a technician, be an electronics expert, be well-rounded. And John's a good fit for that. He's very well-rounded. And then we have some issues with this whole COVID thing with the other Canadian mafioso, which was Darren Marshall. He's been working remotely the last couple of events, the test, and then this last event as well. And that's actually worked out well. Might be a formula for the future, because he was, using a team viewer to log in on his laptop at the racetrack and download the bikes and look at the data and then make changes. And while he was sitting on his couch, probably, hopefully he had pants on.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if he had pants on or not. Nobody's seeing him, right?
I don't care. I said it's a mandatory that he wears his team shirt when he's working the controls. So he shot me a picture of him in the Attack Performance t-shirt.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that worked out well too. That's another thing we tested, was kind of the logistics of making remote work out properly when you're at the racetrack. So we're still got a few hurdles with that. What are we doing with the hot pit? At COTA, we're in a garage, so we had good internet access. At those events, do we use a cellular connection? Do we use a Wi-Fi bridge? Do we try to get an Ethernet connection at one of the racetracks? We're still kind of working that out. I can see some stumbling blocks, but that's what I'm there for too. I jump in and help out if I need to.
Yeah, you're spread pretty thin. I mean, you wear a lot of hats in that race.
There's a lot of me to spread around though.
You said before you left, you said that you were going to test a different engine configuration as well.
Oh yeah, we did that too. Yeah, so we have a new engine that's got a little more high speed in it. Josh was able to pair up with Baz on one of the runs, and he said our speed was really good. So I'll leave it at that. Jake rode pretty much by himself the whole time. I don't think anybody got with him. Maybe Bobby got with him once or something, but I think we're pretty happy with the speed of the bike. I don't know how Jake sizes up against the Ducati. I imagine he'll be there in the fight. For sure, Josh, he's more of a brawler than he is a tester. So at the racetrack, at the tests, in the old days, we would go to tests and we'd just do wheelies the whole time and slide the bike around, and then we'd go, okay, let's go to the racetrack, and then he would be fast, right? So, and we wouldn't really learn a whole lot at the test because it just isn't his thing. He really wants to race. But
yeah, he always says he sucks at testing, and I'm like, dude, you don't suck at testing. Stop saying that. Yeah,
he was getting kind of frustrated because he wasn't doing the lap time. But at the end, we found something he liked. He was fairly didn't have a good feel on the grip of the rear tire exiting the corner and how the chassis was balanced. So because he's so different than Cameron in his riding style, he hangs off the bike like a MotoGP guy or a Moto2 guy, and he puts his head way forward near the windshield. Where Cameron was more centered on the motorcycle, and he would just kind of move his upper torso this way and that way.
Cameron would kind of just tilt his head a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And so with Cameron, we're able to add quite a bit of grip, go forward type situation with the rear tire. And with Josh, as soon as the thing gripped and try to go forward, it would, since he was off the side of the bike, it would give him an uncomfortable feel. He would roll off the gas and the thing would continue to hook the corner. It wouldn't like throttle out wide out of the corner. You follow what I'm saying? It would stay on its side and continue to hook, and then you couldn't get his line right. So we struggled with that a little bit, and but at the end we found something he liked. It was basically changing the wheel force quite a bit. The wheel rate, as they say, and the amount of force that was on the rear tire.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like he was just a tick off, you know, I mean, he wasn't light years off, but he was just a little bit off from the front guys on the sheet. And then, you know, I didn't know what the hell it was. You know, you never know. I mean, you could easily chalk that up to Heron doesn't like testing, right?
Well,
But then,
there's,
you know,
yeah.
but then it's like it looked like he threw down a pretty fast time, like literally on the very last lap of the test. So, you know, you guys are always testing stuff. You just showed a bunch of stuff you tested. Did he try any of that or?
Yeah, he was on all the same stuff as Jake. It's just we couldn't do the iterations with the electronics and some of the other components like the linkage and we messed around with wheelbase a little bit and things like that because he's still trying. He needs like a consistent platform. So A,
Right.
he can get his feeling, and B, we can do an A/B test on something, not just keep throwing stuff at him. He'll totally get spun out if you do that to a new rider. You know, so you kind of want to keep a consistent platform underneath them so they can get a feel for the motorcycle. So we played quite a bit with electronics and the amount of torque we deliver the engine. You'd be surprised when you go to COTA. It is such short gearing for COTA. You think, why is it so short? COTA, I think, is a bit shorter than Laguna.
Really?
For gearing, yeah, because you do use 6. Most of the tracks we go to are like 1st through 4th, 2nd through 5th. You don't hardly ever use 6. I think Road America, COTA, and I can't think of anywhere else where we use 6 gear. I think maybe VIR because it's got a kink in it at the end there. At that straightaway, we might get to 6 because the bike's on the side of the tire. But that's about it, you know. So we don't use 6 very often.
What ultimately was it that you guys, you know, that aha moment that, you know, what change were you able to make for the last lap of the practice session or whatever for Heron to be able to throw down such a fast time?
Yeah, it was, like I said, I just went right after the shot because that was the feeling you had. It was all on the throttle stuff. So whenever problem you have on the throttle, it's usually the rear. If it's a problem like off throttle or on the brakes, it's usually the front. You know, it's pretty simple. You know, the rear's not tracking, gets up in the air, usually you're barely on the ground. Sometimes you'll affect corner entry with a top out spring or how much preload you have on the rear and things like that. But it was just a matter of just getting him the movement he needed. You know, some of the compression damping and preload on the spring rate. So we made a kind of a drastic change right at the very end just to say, okay, here's a Hail Mary for you, so you can get this feel. And he was like, went out there and was like, wow, that thing is really great. I'm gonna go back out. And he went out and did a faster lap. Yeah. So you only got a minute. And so you went and cut the course, I think, through the S's just so you can get that lap in, you know, and he did it. So it was pretty cool.
So, I mean, did it take the 2 days just because you guys are kind of getting to know each other again and, you know, you got to do the Days of Thunder, you know, come up with a language thing or like what's the deal?
Yeah, some of that's true. You know, one of the things that riders do a lot of times, they're pretty emotional. Most riders, you know, especially they get stuck in a rut, like they go on the same lap time. So they'll get more and more emotional and they'll come in and say, the bike sucks everywhere, or I have no feeling. And you say, where you have no feeling, you know, so you got to work through the map. And that might be a session or two before you understand what the heck they're saying. So yeah, some of it is understanding the language and that'll come with time. But then there's other things too, you know, like you don't want to throw a bunch of stuff at it. You want them to kind of work into the motorcycle that, you know, he's ridden a Suzuki and a BMW, completely different motorcycles. They work completely different than this Yamaha. I know because I've worked with those motorcycles as well. And so the rider has to get his head around the bike and then we have to bring the bike to the rider. So it's kind of you have to meet in the middle somewhere.
Right.
And that takes some time.
So, you know, this was also your first opportunity to get a look at the people you're going to be racing against this year, you know, get a look at the competition. What do you think?
I think Baz will be a challenge, no doubt about it. I think we have more in store. We had more in the tank, let's say, than what we used at COTA. You know, we went there with engines that were near timed out because we were looking at mileage on the engines at high speed. And so every engine we had was over 1,000 to 1,500 K. So we're pretty happy with that. We could show up with some new stuff at Road Atlanta, whether we need it or not. And yeah, we didn't have to burn through a bunch of new engines just to go through one test. So we used, like I said, we used some stuff that had quite a bit, they were pretty old in the tooth, and we got some pretty good performance out of them. So pretty happy about that. No failures, no weirdness, no nothing, nice and reliable. And yeah, so we'll see. I think Baz will be probably the main competition. I mean, I could eat my words on that. I think Bobby will be pretty strong.
No surprise that the Ducati's fast, basically.
No, I'm not. I'm surprised that our bikes are pretty capable against it. Speed wise. So that was the thing. You come off a first gear corner, you think that thing should just jump off the corners, but it didn't jump off the corners like I thought it would. So we'll see when we get to Atlanta. But so then you got Bobby on the Suzuki. It's the second year on that thing, and he was going pretty good at the end of last year. So I think he might surprise some people as well. We'll see. I don't think we're gonna give up this fight very easily. So if they expect us to kick back and watch, we're not going to.
Fong did, I guess at the end he did have the fastest lap of the test, which is really impressive, knowing, most people don't know that they didn't really do a lot of testing leading up to that. And I saw him at our track day a couple months ago on a Stalker. So
yeah,
to come out and throw down like that, I was impressed with Cam Peterson too, man. Like that guy was right there. Look lap time wise, looked like he was right there.
Yeah, I think it should be like, I don't know what there's some talk about what tire they used, and it wasn't one on the sheet, and it was maybe a extra soft one or something, but I don't care about all that, If they, like I said, I look at the string, I look at the trend, so right. In engineering, when you look at a graph, sometimes there's an anomaly. If a guy does a 28.2 and everything else is a 10 or a high 9, you go, well, that dude's going to average out at a 10 or a 9 in the race. He's not going to be going out and doing 28.2s, right. Or 0.82s, so you just look at the trends, and that's the way you base your decision on how hard do we have to work and what areas we have to work at. But we work hard here and we prepare, so we'll keep plugging away as if those guys are 2 seconds ahead of us.
You said you prepare. I mean, that we had a talk recently about that. You said preparation's like the biggest key.
Yeah, I say this all the time, and at the racetrack, you want to be friendly with your competition and all that, but the racing starts in the shop. So if you show up the track unprepared, don't come to me and say, hey man, can you do this for me? It's like, hey dude, I started racing at the shop. So I guess you've already given up before you came to the racetrack. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we start racing at the shop, and we race all the way to the track, and then we race back, so we can race back to the track again. So that's kind of the way it works. If you don't prepare, then you've given up before you start.
Another thing I noticed, impressive times from the privateer guys too. I mean, that Uribe dude was ripping. I was surprised. I mean, I'm not really surprised. I mean, I saw him did like a 43.0 at Buttonwillow during a race recently. So
right,
the guy is on one.
Yeah, I saw he had a track record there or something like that. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John said, hey, we should go out to the CRA race and smash that record so bad that nobody can beat it for the next 10 years. I said, man, just let those guys have their glory,
Come on, dude.
Do some
not even fair.
Do some low 41s.
Yeah. It's not even fair. Come on.
No,
but I mean, I don't think he was dodging tumbleweeds to get that either. So
no, he's riding good. That's great too. So I like to see that. The more competition, the better. And I think it's, hopefully some other people come in too. I've heard some talk about maybe one other person coming in, or so hopefully that happens.
One of the who coming in?
Oh, I think maybe Barbara on Scheibe's BMW possibly.
Okay.
So I think that'd be just another world-renowned guy, if that happens, that could possibly be riding our series, which is good. I mean, I talked to Toddy Mercado a little bit, and he was thinking about coming here before he got the Honda ride with Superbike. And so I said, hey, talk to Chuck Axon, see if he can hook you up with something. But there's a lot of attention being paid to our series from the world, and it's a good place for people to land and possibly go back.
Yeah.
The musical chairs happen, and yeah.
I look at the Baz guy. I'm hoping that he kind of does for the current competition that like what Tony did a few years ago, right? I mean, Tony, when he was out there, he kind of elevated everybody. He made everybody step up their game. And, it's unfortunate that he doesn't have a ride. I'm sure he wants to be racing.
Yeah, I think Cameron stepped up everybody's game last year.
Yep.
I think just about everybody went faster on the same rubber and the same motorcycles, basically, right? So how'd that happen?
Right.
Like the compounds, the tires didn't change at all from year to year. So I don't know if they'll have anything new this year to make lap times go any better, but we went faster and everybody else went faster. So it should be interesting this year to see if anybody goes any faster than Cameron did. So if we can, that'd be awesome. But I think that'll be hard to do. Not without a change in tires or something. The other thing too with those Ducati guys, I mean, they hired Vito from Morelli to be their data guy. So that dude's got a world of experience. That guy was with Yamaha for a long time before, he stayed at Morelli full time. So, and then he worked with Ducati before that. So Vito's going to be a big asset to those guys.
Yeah.
So they'll have the electronic side figured out pretty quick. Vito's been in it. It's not like a guessing, it's not some guy going, I know this, I can do this. What does this graph do? The Vito knows all that stuff. Plus he knows the back end, and he's got the secret handshake login too, the secret dongle that opens up everything.
Yeah.
So he's got one of those too.
Well, I almost forgot to talk about Matthew Skoltz. I mean, that dude was right there as well, right?
No, Matthew, for having a pretty bad injury on his ankle, he looked pretty good.
He looks bad.
And those guys at Westby, they continue to impress, right? I mean, a couple of years back, they were on the so-so equipment, so we started helping them, and Matthew started feeling better and better about the motorcycle, and they've stepped up their electronics game. They hired Herschel last year, I think, and so they've gone better and better every year. So I think they're going to be quite the challenge as well. But we'll see.
I saw a recent announcement that you guys have stepped up the partnership a little bit with Westby, right?
Yeah. So we had, we're using the Yamaha transporter. And so we leased the Yamaha transporter basically from Yamaha because it was already all set up for Cameron, and it was easy just to kind of transfer our equipment into it. And so we had our transporter just sitting there all last year. And I already had mentioned that last year to the Westby guys. Hey, how about you guys use our transporter instead of using that fifth wheel and that trailer? And they had the island of pop-ups. I'm always trying to get those guys to step up. And so this year they decided to, and part of the catch is that they do a little bit of support for the other guys in the paddock with our products. So we'd like to see the paddock grow. That's our goal. We'd like to have a home in the paddock for a while. We don't want to go to another paddock quite yet. So we're hoping the series stays the way it is, and it grows, and more people get involved in it, and more sponsors get involved in it, brings more money in. And so if you have more semis in the paddock, and it's a shame just to have our semis sitting here while we're out gallivanting around the country. So so they're going to be picking that thing up and taking all the races and showing off some of our goods and talking to people and shaking the right hands. And they have a few.
Are they going to have are they going to carry basically the full line of the TAC product to sell trackside? Is that what's happening? Or
well, they're not going to vendor it because when you start, it's like a sticky situation with vendoring at the racetrack. That.
Yeah.
You basically take away all your money. So they're going to just show our goods, and if someone needs support, they'll be able to help them out. Like let's say a racer falls down and breaks a peg off, they'll be able to help them out with that. But they're not going to be out there doing retail sales, get your tax stuff 20% off, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to be doing that. But they will be there to support the race team, just like Brembo comes around the paddock, or Olin's goes around the paddock and helps people out. It's the same kind of idea.
So I got a couple of questions already. Mark Johnson wants to know, how is Josh adjusting to the new R1? I think we just kind of talked about that.
Yeah,
right?
we talked about that.
And then Chris Lee wants to know, how about those cloud services?
The cloud services.
And then Mark also says, are any lessons learned from last season and the recent tests that encourage major changes to the current stuff that you guys are doing?
Yeah, of course. we dissect the data pretty good. When we started last year, I would say that was the infancy of us and working with Cameron and trying to really get the torque control and some of the anti-wheelie stuff and really doing a deeper dive in electronics than we did previous year with JD Beach. Yeah, because we had switched to a different version of electronics with JD Beach, and then we were able to continue that with Cameron. And JD kind of blazed a path on that deal. And then Cameron took it and refined it. When working with Cameron, refined it a little bit more. And Jake was just learning. So now, Jake is going to the next step with different iterations of that same software. And then now I'm working with Josh to get his head back around the Yamaha. So so it's constantly, we're constantly progressing. We're constantly working on different things. We never go, oh, this is perfect. There's no such thing. It's perfect. You make a list that's like 100 items. You might get 50 of those done before you go to the race, and then you come back and try to knock out the other 50. So you just keep on plugging away. The list is never done, ever.
Right. Well, you know what? There's some other stuff that was going on too. I mean, the 600 guys were testing as well. Looked like Richie Escalante pretty much had everybody covered in that class.
Yeah.
Not surprising at all.
Mm-hmm.
Rocco Landers wasn't too far back, but he was still a tick off from where Richie is.
Yeah, Richie was a crazy amount faster, wasn't he?
Yeah, like two seconds ish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Richie should be on Superbike.
Yeah, they were talking. I know that those guys, whoever it was,
Hono's guys.
Humberto, I think maybe was telling me that they were doing something, but I don't know whatever happened with that. But he's back on a 600. I know he wants to be on the Superbike.
He should be. I think he's riding good enough to do that. I think he's got the displacement advantage in that class. So they should just make it fair on everyone. They should have some kind of more balancing rules. I don't know what that's going to entail exactly, because 36 more CCs is a pretty good jump. So I know from our involvement with Kawasaki in the past, that's pretty much a ringer. So you put a good rider on a ringer motorcycle, and it's going to be hard to beat, especially a first through six racetrack like COTA. I think when they get some of the tighter stuff, the Yamaha can roll the corners. It's pretty good at doing that. It's easy to ride motorcycle. They put the first through six style acceleration tracks is going to be hard to beat.
Okay, so we've got multi-bad bass. Regarding testing, generally, where do you end up in terms of rake and trail on his 16 plus ZX10? Have you done any testing with the head cups to reduce rake and move the headstock to the front? And wondering what the typical rake trail values you look for.
There's no typical values, and I probably wouldn't give them out anyway because we have competition we got to deal with. I can tell you this much: on the Yamaha, we always end up with a rake kicked out, whether it's a 1/2 degree or 1 degree, because by the time let's say the bike comes, so this is pretty typical with all motorcycles, they come with a number like say 24 or 24.5 degrees. By the time you put a shock on it that's firm, so you can go around the corner, or the bike goes up a little bit to get grip. Now that angle goes back to, like, let's say 23 or 22 3/4. Then you got to kick it out again to get back to that number. So most bikes end up with the thing raked out a bit. It didn't used to be like that in the past, but as the geometry of the bike heads that direction, like more racy, which is a pretty firm spring, then dynamically the bike ends up losing trail, and you end up having to kick it out. You can't do enough with just moving the clamp back, so you end up kicking it out. Plus, you go for a little bit longer motorcycle for stability nowadays. That's the thing. The MotoGP bikes are pretty long and low. You can see how low they are. They take off like drag bikes, and so with that, you got to balance the bike out. So having the front end out there helps balance, take some of the load off the front tire, so you can drive a little harder. So there's no magic number. Go ahead.
That dude, multi-bad base. He just corrected me, as in
multi-bad base. Okay.
Instrument instead of the fish. So
okay, not multi-bad bass. That sounds pretty funny too, though.
Yeah,
What's the bass part? Does he play a bass guitar or something?
Yeah, I guess so. He didn't. Well, he'll probably comment that in a minute.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what? Here's something. People were talking about this the last couple days. Since that press release went out. I guess Andrew Lee is going to race for. I can't remember what team it is, but he's going to come out and race Stock 1000 and the Superbike Cup.
Oh, cool.
And that guy won a couple of championships, but I saw some chatter today from some friends of mine that are club racers, and they seem pretty peeved about that because I guess there's some kind of Moto America rule, or if you won, 2 championships in Super Stock or Stock 1000, that you were ineligible. I looked up the rule book and it says riders who have finished in the top 3 in Stock 1000 in 2 seasons of 3 seasons may not be eligible. It says may not be eligible.
Yeah, so, ultimately it's to the discretion of either the promoter or the sanctioning body, right?
Right.
So not necessarily just the sanctioning body, but also Motor America, the race organization. At the end, we want everyone to race, right?
Right.
So when people start trying to disqualify people because they race too good or too fast and they got to move along, it kind of bums me out a bit. It's like, are you really that petty?
That's where you were going with it. I knew that's where you were going to go with it. That's why I said it.
It's pretty petty, and I think it's almost like Marsha type thing,
Oh my God. Here we go. Richard with the 70s TV references.
Of course. That's the only thing I remember of my childhood, the 70s and 80s.
Oh, and that
drag racing on the street.
Guy, he says he slaps the bass guitar. So there you go.
Oh, okay, that's why.
Slapping the bass. He says.
Slapping the bass. Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the dude's gonna race in the Superbike Cup, and I looked at it like this. He didn't race last year much. Like he had a couple of races after winning 2 championships, and he was left without a ride. I think it's great that he got another ride, and maybe he'll use that to prove himself the way Cam Peterson did this past year, right?
Yeah, and get a ride on somebody else's team. Maybe Ulrich will pick him up, or maybe somebody else will give him a seat, because there's people out there. If there's a good rider, like Josh, he's got 9 lives. He went to Moto 2, and they're like, oh, he's done. He came back here and won a championship.
Right.
And was competitive. Then he rides for us and finishes almost second in the championship, finished third in the championship. Then he goes and gets a Yosh ride, and now he's back on Yamaha again. So you never, ever give up in this sport unless you're mentally done.
Oh, man. Yeah, Chris Lee says he's got a Brady Bunch Marsha crush.
Marsha. Yeah, she's pretty hot for us kids.
Wow. I never thought we would go there. Oh man. Okay, so I got some more comments from people. Bill Russell, William Russell, we call him Bill. He says that it looked like you guys had a great test, and he's excited to watch the FreshNLean attack team smash this year. So
smash ourselves or smash someone else?
I guess just beat up on everybody like you guys did last year.
Yeah, I think we caught everyone with their pants down last year with the COVID and all that stuff. So I'm not going to take anything for granted. Bobby showed us his true colors at the end there. I think he's fast. Baz or Bass. Can we call him Bass? Without disease. We'll call him Bass instead of Bass.
There we go.
So Bass the rider, not the fish. I think the dude's got so much experience. The only drawback he's got is the size. So, our guys are pretty thin and small, not Jake so much, but Josh is. So I think we'll be able to take some advantage of that. I think he's going to manhandle that motorcycle everywhere he goes, like Road Atlanta. If I get to those S's really good, so I'm not going to put him past anything. I think we're going to have to fight all the way.
Nice.
If that isn't,
you're not just coming out like, yep, we got this in the bag.
No, not at all. That'd be the absolute wrong thing to do.
Right. Well, because then you could slack on preparing, right?
Yeah.
You could forget to give Walker the M&Ms before the trip,
Yeah,
stuff like
I haven't seen him eat very many M&Ms. I think that's done a lot for his psychological, stability. You get too much sugar in that boy, and he goes nuts.
I saw him at Willow, and he's like, I don't think I've ever seen him that relaxed.
Mellow, because I wasn't there.
He may or may not have said that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure he said that.
Yeah, so Sebastian Sanchez says that he wants to know if you're hiring. He's getting his CDL soon. And then this one's kind of funny. I'm going to pick on Ty Bangford a little bit.
So hold on a second. Let's back up with that.
Yeah.
The guy starts his resume with, "I'm going to get my license soon."
Yes.
Let me drive you $2 million setup.
I'll ask anything.
What's that?
I said, I'm like Ron Burgundy. I'll ask anything.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Tell him just to come up with a different method of, resume. I'm going to get my license soon. Can you let me drive your Ferrari?
Exactly. And then, okay, like I'm going to pick on.
We have three CDLs on the team. I don't think we're looking for any more, but you never know. Call me after you drive a few trucks a few dozen years.
That's awesome. And I'll ask it too. I'm expecting colorful answers like this. So
yes, of course. Okay.
So you're gonna love this one too. Club racer guy Ty Bangford. He's like he works for Apex Assassins Track Day. Like he races a Cowie. I think he recently broke his collarbone, but he says basically, since I'm an expert at Chuckwalla now, with one fast lap time and a big crash, can the FreshNLean attack team pick me up as a full-time Superbike rider? I promise I won't crash their bikes. I might go a little bit slower, but at least I'll be nice and shiny at the end.
Yeah, okay. They'll be shiny. Maybe.
Yeah. So, wait by your phone, Ty.
Yeah. I'm right here, man. Should I give my cell number? Here you go. Call me.
Yeah.
I'll answer, I promise.
Oh, man. That's hilarious.
Back to the resume thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Dude, you did one fast lap at Chuckwalla. That should qualify you for pro Superbike ride, right?
Chuckwalla, the track of off throttle, on throttle, no braking.
Right.
The exact opposite of COTA.
So now that you've seen the competition and you got a round coming up in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah.
You're going to Road Atlanta?
2.5 weeks the truck will be rolling, and then almost exactly 3 weeks from now, right? We'll be putting up our new awning with the FreshNLean logo and stuff all over it.
So is there anything that, based on what you saw and experienced at the test, is there anything that you guys are going to, new ammo to,
Yeah, we'll have I guess you can call it a staff meeting on Friday, and with myself, John, and Darren, and we'll go over some of the strategy going into Atlanta. Of course, we'll look at the data we had from Cameron with data we had with Jake, and we'll tell Jake to look at Cameron's data, do more of that, and then we'll tell Josh to look at Cameron's data, do more of that. But it's hard to tell a rider to be like another rider.
Right.
So one of the areas like we work on with Jake is his use of the rear brake. He's still got Danny Walker swimming around his head up there, still smashing the rear brake at the end of the straightaway when he's still full throttle. And even though he's fast, you just have to sometimes look at it and go, well, it's not as bad as last year,
So any plans to, make some sort of attack aero hard bracket to mount that braking front rotor on the rear, or
yeah. If we did this, I guarantee it would be 3 seconds a lap slower. Put this on the rear. But it might work good in the dirt.
And that caliper too. Put that caliper on the rear.
Yeah, we'll take it to the American flat track.
Wow.
Yeah, let's put the R1 there. Just rear brakes only. What front brake?
So that, obviously that's the stuff that you're going to have to work with Jake on. And then, obviously Josh, to get Josh just to switch himself on, right? Like
Josh will
he's
be
supposed to
fine.
have that ability to switch himself on during the races.
Josh will be fine unless if the thing with Josh is the first session has to be what he rode before. I learned that with him in 2018 at the Yosh. I tell him the Yosh guys when I rode for them too. I said, don't change anything when you go for the next racetrack, because if you change even a grip, he won't feel comfortable and throws off his first session, will wreck the whole weekend. So, I just talked to him today. So you show up with what you just left off, whatever he's comfortable on. So we tried with him, we did try some ergonomics in the racetracks. We tried some bars to help with his riding style, the hang off style. And he went back to basically what we rode in 18 and what Cameron liked last year and what Jake is on. So that was good. At least we can keep that consistent amongst the team. But we did try some stuff there with the ergo, and we did move some pegs around, things like that. So we learned a lot this last test, especially the last session. So we'll start there. It might be a little bit soft for Road Atlanta, but we'll just start stiffening up from there. But at least he'll have a feeling of where he was at and the direction to go, versus being out there somewhere where you're going, well, is it this way or this way? Because even though we have really good data, the riders adjust their throttle and braking to put the bike in a chassis dynamic which is comfortable, right?
Right.
Yeah. So if they're not feeling it on the front, they'll pull the lever only so hard to go in the corner, and it'll look like the same thing as a hot lap on the data. So you have to be kind of take it all with a grain of salt. You go, well, he's braking pretty hard, but not as hard as before. So why not? I think we talked about this before, like with Cameron at Road America. We tried something in the front end to get it to go over the seam of the track and turn 5 a little better. And slowed him up basically about almost a half second. And he said, I can't stop for turn 1. I don't know what it is. Is there something wrong with the pads? Like, no, man, we just changed the front springs. That's it. And he's like, man, it doesn't feel like springs. It just feels like I can't stop. Well, the reason why he couldn't stop, he couldn't tell his hand to pull the lever any harder. His brain says, you pull any harder and you're going to go over the bars, you're going to crash, you're going to tuck the front, and all those kinds of things run through your head, the feeling, right? So then you go put springs in, boom, back to lap time he was at. So that's the way it kind of works. So sometimes the data can be deceiving. That's the area you got to take it all with a grain of salt. You got to have a little bit of experience too. Sometimes I may not even look at the data and just listen to the rider, and you make a change and the rider says it's the same, but the volume goes up. That means it was worse. The volume of complaint goes up.
Yeah, that goes into that Days of Thunder lingo thing, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, sometimes you just got to throw the laptop away and just keep plugging away with old school rider tuner type, conversation. Get the track map out.
It's weird to hear you say old school.
I am old school.
Well, I mean,
I had a Briggs and Stratton pull start moped. That's really old school. You tuned the jetting while you rode it, by turning the needle in and out.
Well, you know what? I'm going to add to this discussion a little bit, something I actually talked to Bill Russell about, and you kind of alluded to that in the discussion about Andrew Lee, right? It's like you want to grow the sport. I think we've had this conversation before, and it's like, what needs to be done to get more Superbikes on the grid? I like the Superbike Cup thing. I think that gives those guys the stock 1,000 guys an incentive to try to tough it out in the Superbike class. It kind of and the discussion I had with Bill was that if we remember, 20 years ago or whatever, I mean, everybody, like half the field in 750 Super Sport, they would go and race Superbike after, and they would basically focus their championship efforts in Super 750 Super Sport, and then they would earn their race travel fees and stuff by finishing top 20 in Superbike. And like what do we have to do to kind of go back to that? The Jimmy Moore, Richie Alexander, you fill in the blank, Dean Misdahl era of racing? Like, what does the sport need to do in order to kind of recapture that?
I think one of the things that has gone by the wayside is the people roughing it. They don't know how to rough it anymore. They don't know how to live in their box van and roll out a bike and just work on the motorcycle and put every minute of your life into that thing if they're serious about it. Yeah, I don't see that as much. Maybe I'm just missing it when I walk past those guys. I don't know, but I don't see that kind of dedication like we had when we were coming through, because I didn't grow up with a semi truck. We had to work towards that. I started with a box van and Paul Harrell's dad, and we went to every racetrack. We raced Superbike. We were finished top privateer that first season. First full season. And that took a lot of work and a lot of dedication and a lot of sleepless nights. So I don't know. I think people want to be in their comfort zone. They don't want to rough it. I mean, I think there's enough money out there where if people were willing to do it, they could find it. I think there's more and more TV coming, and people have to be able to present that to whoever's going to give them the money. I mean, you see Kyle Wyman, who's constantly getting something.
Dude, that guy was like
make a show go.
Man, towing his rig in a pickup truck for a long time, and now he's got a semi.
Yeah,
I look at that Max Flinders dude. He's got like that basically like a rider truck, right?
Yeah, no, I mean that's what Paul Harrell had. We had basically a moving van, small one. We went from race to race to race. I remember pulling alongside at the time it was Scheibe on the factory Harleys. They had this rig that was gigantic. It was an extra long tractor, and it was a 53-foot trailer, and the thing looked massive. And we pulled up alongside of us, a little box van, and we were leading them in the championship at the time. And you were shaking their heads like, "How can you guys do that?" It's like hard work, really, really hard work, and just scraping along the money the best you could. And of course, the series, a lot of people miss is that they have show money. So you can get some show money back. And the one of the things that were easier back then was if you were an AMA at the time, you got free tires. For the most part, you got free tires from Dunlop, or maybe whoever else was in Michelin, or
back
there was
then,
competition.
We talked about that a little bit, right? Back in the day, it was like Michelin and Pirelli. I mean, I know you guys were on Pirelli, and I know that what is now the M4 Team Hammer, they were on Michelin for a long time, and then they moved to Pirelli. And then basically all the factory teams were Dunlop, right?
Yeah. So I think the whole spec tire thing kind of started costing some money to the teams but it comes back a little bit. I think Dunlop, I don't know the back end of how it works, but I'm pretty sure they give the series enough money to where that money ends up back in the riders' pockets with that show money.
Right.
So the series got to survive too. So if there's no series, and the series doesn't make any money, then nobody else is making any money, right? There's no series.
Exactly.
So I understand their struggle, and I understand the team struggles. And the most expensive thing of racing, I say this all the time, is the travel, and the crew. So it was pretty cheap in 18 when it was, we finished third in the championship. If our bike would have kept running at New Jersey and didn't have that electrical fault, we would have won that second race, and we would have been second in the championship. And we spent almost nothing that season. We got some money back from the series. We built everything in-house. It was myself, Will, and Fernando and Walker. And Fernando was basically flying in just to help us wipe the bike down and on his own dime pretty much. And then Will got a small amount of money and Walker got a small amount of money to be there. And I worked for free basically. So that's the way you kind of keep it going. When you hit a dead spot in the racing, you just kind of keep going unless you say, "Oh, it's not worth it. I'd rather be on the couch." And good on you, find something else to do.
Kyle Wyman said this last year in one of our YouTube things. He said that if you're thinking about racing Superbike, you should just race Superbike and we'll figure it out. That's a pretty bold statement coming from that dude, But at the same time, he's lived it, right? I mean, he had some R1 that was basically a super stock bike, and he raced that in Superbike. And it got a little bit higher state of tune at some point, and he did podium in a Superbike race on the thing, as a privateer, and now he's doing that Ducati thing all by himself. And I mean, look at him, he's got a semi now, and he's sponsored by Panera.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, dude, free
Yeah,
Sam.
yeah. No, I was happy to see that because I didn't see him at the test. Like, man,
I
we
guess
can't
he was,
afford to have another guy go away.
he did some Ducati thing a couple days later. So he got to go to COTA, but he didn't go to the test.
Right, I got you. I got you. Well, I mean, that's fine. You know, again, it's not a track we race at.
Right.
So, but for us, it was important to go there because of the high speed straightaways and the heavy braking and some of the crazy corners, you know, and then the S's, go through the S's. I was pleased to never get a complaint. This is one thing that was pretty good for us. Never got a complaint about the bike being heavy to steer. I think it's the first time I've had that in the S's. Even our CRT bike, you know, we're racing MotoGP, is like, oh, it's so hard to turn through the S's. Nothing had carbon brakes on it, you know. So I'm like, how hard could what? Pull harder on the lever, on the bars, you know. What do you mean, Tom? You know, and so I think it was interesting that we didn't get that complaint on our Superbikes, even though they were going at a pretty decent clip. I mean, a high 8's not slow, especially on race rubber.
So Mark Johnson wants to know, like, has Josh's riding style changed significantly since you worked with him last time?
I don't think so. I think he has one riding style.
He's like out there, you know.
Yeah, yeah. He does the whole Moto2, MotoGP style, which works for him.
Yeah.
I think just getting his confidence back after riding a couple seasons on other bikes, I think that's what we're missing. And I think we worked on some of that at COTA was grabbing the brake lever hard enough and keeping the consistent brake pressure on it all the way to the apex, you know, and reducing pressure all the way to the apex and open the throttle. I think that's the area. That's an area where Cameron was really a master at. And Josh is still vacillating on that a little bit because probably a year on that BMW, which isn't real strong on the front, is probably trying to shake that out of his head.
Okay, so there's another guy, Haim Baresi. He's like, you know, what kind of brake pressure do Jake and Josh have at COTA in comparison to Cameron?
I don't think it's the max pressure, because Jake would max the pressure, would get more max pressure than Cameron would. Let's say Cameron put in 9 bars. Jake could, on a spike, get 11 bars. If he pushes back hard enough on the thing and then just grabs the brake really hard. But it's the consistent pressure. So it's the consistent deceleration and then the release of the lever all the way at the apex. So I think that's the difference between a guy like Cameron, let's say, and maybe somebody that's in 4th or 5th place. Honestly, I think that's where a lot of lap time comes from. It did for Cameron for sure. It wasn't, oh, the bike is, you know, he's hanging off more and he's carrying more corner speed. I think it was the corner entry which gets him pointed down the straightaway and being able to put the bike at the proper spot exactly on the racetrack. And he was really good at that. And yeah, I'd like to see him get that. He's looking for a feeling now too in Moto2. So he's missing that a little bit in Moto2 that we had really good last year here. So I think once he gets that, though, I think he's going to be really rocking in that series, just to change the subject a bit.
Yeah. So Ty Bankford is now watching. So
okay, good on you, Ty.
Yeah, he asked if I asked this question.
Yeah. What's the question? Yeah.
Yeah, man, just wait by the phone, buddy. You know, Richard will call you as soon as we end
yeah,
this, man. Seriously.
Just go ahead and give us your number. And yeah. I'm sure lots of people will call pretending they're me.
Yeah, exactly. No, I want his buddies to call him and pretend they're you.
Just rattle out your number there, Ty.
Oh, man, that's so funny. All right, well, you know what, Richard? I wish you the best of luck.
All right, cool, man.
Couple weeks and you know, get back to work. I'm interrupting.
I'm still trying to figure this thing out. Maybe you can send someone over that understands this thing.
You know, the cloud. You know, the cloud services.
This is my cloud right here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What? So you're just gonna put XM radio on all the toolboxes now? Or?
Yeah, I figured. Don't warm the tires. Just play XM real loud.
I mean, you know,
sound frequency. That'll heat them up. It's like a microwave.
All right, man.
Okay.
Thanks for the chat, Richard.
All right, dude. Thanks. We'll see ya.